Hey everyone, on my latest podcast, we sit down with an up and coming company that's poised to take advantage of the ever so hot New York market. I asked the question, when can we expect adult sales online? And his answer is a lot sooner than you think. When will it happen? Find out now in our latest podcast.
Cobb, what's going on, bro?
Hey everyone, welcome to the Dales Report podcast. And today we have Mark Sims. He's the CEO of RIV Capital, which trades on the CSE under the ticker symbol RIV. Mark, how are things?
Things are good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. What do you think of this old crazy landscape of cannabis? What a wild ride it's been for quite some time, has it not?
No, it absolutely has been. And, so obviously had followed it pretty closely, meaning the industry. When I worked at Scott's Miracle-Gro, just moved over to RIV a little over 2 months ago.
Okay.
But really followed it as with respect to kind of the industry and looking at input supplies. And Scott's has Hawthorne Gardening business, which sells input supplies. So it was, kind of on the outside looking in. And so now that you're in it, believe it, just in 2 months, it's amazing the amount of activity, deal
Yes.
flow, and everything that's going on here.
So why the move from Scott's Miracle-Gro to RIV Capital? Because I want to get a better understanding, obviously, of who RIV Capital is, but most importantly, a lot of clients you work with and what your, I guess, opportunity is within the space.
Yeah, so RIV Capital obviously historically was the venture capital arm of Canopy Growth, and they were making investments in ancillary cannabis companies as well as Canadian plant touching companies. The team at RIV had decided probably a year and a half ago, essentially to say, hey, we think the real opportunity is going to be U.S. plant touching businesses.
Of course.
And so they took a series of steps to kind of disentangle themselves from Canopy Growth. And about that same time, and they said, hey, we're going to go and become an operating business in the US. At that same time, again, working at Scott's Miracle-Gro, some analysis that my team did within, for Hawthorne really took a look at, hey, currently the Hawthorne approach of selling kind of picks and shovels, meaning selling, nutrients, fans, filters, lights, growing media, etc., is good and it's been profitable. But if you look at any crop-based industry, the people selling input supplies don't make a lot of margin dollars. The farmers don't make a lot of margin. It's really
Yeah.
the brands and
Yeah.
the retail that make a lot of margin dollars. The genetics companies a lot of times make a high margin rate, but the opportunity or the addressable market's a little smaller. And so, at Scott's, we started looking at that, and the Scott's company in general, and with Hawthorne, they've been highly supportive of the cannabis industry. And they were interested to say, hey, how do we play in the branded consumer cannabis space? And we looked at a bunch of different approaches, and obviously Scott's is NYSE traded. They have a
Yep.
lot of large scale banking relationships,
Yeah.
and so they needed a structure that would work appropriately. And we had dealt with the RIV Capital team previously, and we're trying to work on something, and it didn't work out. But kind of right along the time they started to pivot, we re-engaged with them, and then last August, we came to a deal where Scott's contributed 150 million in a convertible debenture um, to Hawthorne. That
Yep.
would be
Remember that?
convertible up to 42% of the equity, and then we also had um, the right to 3 board seats. So I joined the board back in August, and then really with kind of around 400 million in capital, really went looking at a bunch of different targets in the U.S. And then culminated with the Etain transaction in New York, which we're super excited about the New York market and the
Yeah, for
Etain business.
sure.
And as we pivoted to be more of an operating company, it made sense for me to move over given the historical nature of the team being more venture capital focused.
So you invest, launch, and develop U.S. cannabis operators and brands. And I always ask this question, or at least I'm interested to learn more. Where do you see the whole branding landscape, in this cannabis industry developing over the next 3 to 5 years?
Yes, so I think our thesis is that if you think about on the where the cannabis is the product, right?
Yeah.
So if you think of flower, pre-roll, concentrates, I think there's a lot of legacy brands that have existed for years. We think
Mm-hmm.
on the West Coast where it's been highly competitive. So brands that have been able to compete and win in that highly competitive West Coast market. It says a lot about their ability to grow and compete and produce high quality flower. I think on the and again, 3 to 5 years may not be the right window, but I think on where the cannabis is an ingredient. So when you think about edibles, when you think about beverages, things of that
Like,
nature.
do you think we
I,
get to a point where we see commercials during like sports games and stuff like that when it comes to edibles and cannabis drinks and stuff like that in the near future?
well, New York is allows commercials that came out in their initial regs. They're going to allow television commercials.
Wow.
So whether or not you've got a large CPG company that's launched a THC based product, that again I don't know if that's going to happen in 3 to 5 years, but I think that's the space, meaning where THC is an ingredient, is where the established consumer products companies, including
Yeah.
the beverage manufacturers, I think that's where they'll be able to differentiate just because of their existing legacy brands. But
Yeah.
again, as where cannabis is the product, I think that's where a lot of these legacy operators are going to have a leg up versus someone just kind of creating a brand out of thin air that's a flower, a heavy flower product.
It's interesting. I want to focus on New York. You touched on it. Look back on some recent news back in April. You closed an acquisition to acquire Etain LLC and Etain IP LLC, who are owners and operators of legally licensed cannabis cultivation and retail dispensaries in New York. This was part of your big push to obtain a footprint in the state. So, my question: where does Attain fit into the master plan, and what sort of market do you think New York can, I guess, represent from a sales perspective?
Yeah, so maybe I'll tackle the first part initial or the second part first. With respect to the kind of the attractiveness of the New York market, like I said, when we had our had targeting meetings and looked at different geographies, New York obviously would sort to the top. It's currently a very small medical market. There's only about I think 120 130,000 patients that are enrolled. But when you look at the size of the state, right? So high population, 200 million plus visitors every year, or at least
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of pre-COVID numbers. When you think about the cultural influence that the state of New York and New York City specifically has on the rest of the New England as well, the rest of the country and the world even. Um, it's just a super attractive market, and then you layer in kind of the regulatory approach that they have in New York. So it's currently going to be has limited licenses. There's only 10 ROs that are registered organizations that are able to compete in the medical market, and we will be allowed once adult use starts. We'll be allowed to compete in participate in the adult use market, and three adult use co-located dispensaries with medical, and then a big wholesale market, right? So when you think about um, the regulatory scheme, they want to stand up a lot of social equity licenses. I think it's 200 to 300 social equity dispensary licenses that they want to put out there. So
Okay.
there's a great wholesale opportunity
Wow.
to help those retailers have the best products on their shelves. And then when you think about like if you add all
So
that
where do you,
up,
if I don't mind you cutting it, where do you think we are in New York right now? Like, where do you see adult use sales? Do you see it coming online this year?
I think that they currently state that they want to have adult use sales online by the end of the calendar year.
Mm-hmm.
I think that will be a challenge to have all these social equity retailers up and running by then. And we still don't have the final regs in terms of they've released, I think, the marketing and advertising and packaging regs, but we haven't seen anything since. So I think it's probably going to be the end of this calendar year, beginning of calendar year 2023 before we kind of have first sale. Uh, and even that might be small and maybe only through these, the registered organizations dispensaries. Um, so I think if there's one thing we know about New York, they're gonna try to do it right, and that may take a little more
Yeah.
time. They'll
But when it does happen, I guess, what do you anticipate? Because this is going to move quick. And I think most importantly, if it's like in a investment landscape right now, especially in this industry that seems to be flooded with a lot of players who to pick and choose from, what opportunities does it present why investors should invest in your company and the opportunity that it does present if and when this obviously does go live in the end of the calendar year?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So I guess a few things that I would say about the New York market in general, and then kind of RIV specifically. One is, when there's different estimates out there, anywhere between $3 and $6 billion by 2026 in terms of the total or the TAM estimates for just the state of New York. And so it's absolutely going to be massive. In the end, it'll probably rival California as being the biz. It'll definitely be second behind California, but will be the fastest growing between now and 2026. Just as you said, kind of the adult use ramps up, and so it's just going to be really a monster as it relates to growth and opportunity there. I think there is a challenge in New York with the illicit market. Right, I was in New
Yep.
York City
Yep.
last week, and so I think that's where once we do get adult use online, that's where the regulators in the state are really going to have to help out the legal operators to make sure that there's not kind of an unfair advantage for these unlicensed operators, who are not doing things, above board. They're not getting taxes on that, obviously. And you don't really know the source of the products. There's robust testing requirements in the state of New York, and obviously anything that's sold, black market product, you don't know
Yeah.
where it came from. Um, as it relates to RIV, we're doing a couple things to make sure that we're ready for the adult use market. Obviously, we've got a small cultivation facility in Chestertown, New York today.
Yeah.
That's undergoing an expansion. We'll triple the canopy size. That'll give us probably about 15,000 square feet of flowering canopy. And then what we're doing, and we're kind of in advanced stages of discussions with a developer to build out what we're calling our flagship cultivation facility. So this will be an indoor cultivation facility, leveraging the expertise of kind of external advisors, but also the Hawthorne team, who have seen hundreds and hundreds of grows. But really, it's to have kind of the finest um, indoor cultivation facility in New York, if not in the country. Building on all the lessons learned from all kinds of previous operators that we've been
Yeah.
talking to, but that'll give us a huge footprint. That'll come online probably, hopefully, this time next year. So again, we'll ramp into um, the adult use market, but it's our intent to have kind of premium products really on the flower, vape, and concentrate side that we can offer to New York consumers. And the other thing that we're going to be able to do with that flagship facility is attract some of these West Coast brands that I referred to earlier that are winning.
Which is
We're
big.
Yeah, having discussions with them, and they're very particular about the growing environment of which their
Very.
products will be grown.
That's putting it
And
mildly.
yeah, and so really building on, including partnering with some of them to kind of build to suit, making sure that we've got a facility, SOPs, which sounds boring, but kind of you're doing everything the way they would do it in their facilities in California,
Yeah.
so that the
Yeah.
product is virtually indistinguishable. And then, like I said, having those brands that are known to consumers that can help drive traffic for these wholesale retailers, the social equity retailers. We
Yeah.
think that in the long term is the right recipe. Meaning, we're not trying to open as many dispensaries as we can, which a lot of MSOs have that approach, and I understand why.
But it's
Our
the
goal in
wholesale
New York,
opportunity.
yeah, our goal in New York is, and if you look at any mature consumer products category, it's not how many stores you own; it's how many store shelves are you on, right? And
Right.
so New York gives you that opportunity that if you have the right products and you can get the distribution, you want to be on as many store shelves as possible. And if you have premium brands, they're going to help drive traffic. That allows you to get kind of the appropriate margin for those products, even when there might be price pressure at kind of the midpoint or the value
Hmm.
based products.
I look at New York and the opportunity it presents. I think this really changes the landscape, the entire game of this industry nationally. And I need to ask a hypothetical question. And I hate talking politics because we never know what's going to happen. But assuming, let's say, Chuck Schumer's CAOA Act, which is scheduled to be introduced later this summer, let's say it fails. Do you then see Schumer moving towards safe banking reform, given that he's a senior United States senator? He's from New York. As it looks right now, it looks like the Republicans are going to run away with the midterms. But like in one last ditched effort, do you see him getting aggressive in trying to bring safe banking across the finish line prior to the midterms?
I saw an article, and I can't recall where it was. Where it was published, but it was, I think, a couple days ago, and it said just that they were definitely trying to make a last ditch effort, and they weren't giving up on the Schumer bill. But it sounded like he had had some conversations with some colleagues about, hey, if we can't kind of boil the ocean, let's at least try to make things easier for the industry as it relates to safe banking. And there's been obviously a lot of kind of high profile challenges and crimes that have been committed this year out in the state of Washington that really highlights the need to you got things that criminals want, right? You got a lot of
Yeah.
cash and cannabis, and that's just kind of not a great recipe. And so to bring some normalcy to the banking, especially as it relates to um, an industry that is, as you said, is taking hold in his home state, you would think that he could get behind that, knowing that that's kind of a great initial step to normalization and legalization of the industry at the federal level.
Do you think it happens?
What I think is going to happen, and this is from talking to some colleagues that follow it closer, I think that it's currently everybody says, oh, it's stuck in the Competes Act, and it'll stay there. I think eventually it gets stripped out, but I think in the lame duck session of Congress they pass it.
Yeah. Well, that's a bold statement. I hope you're right. Because what
Yeah,
it would do, I think, for this industry would be like I sometimes even like scratch my head at times thinking how much growth, how much opportunity, how much excitement this industry has. Yet we're still dealing with all these legality issues that I don't know how much easier and a breath of fresh air would be for so many companies nationally once we get some sort of legislation with the proper financial system put in place, tax codes, you name it. It would just be so much growth opportunity for the cannabis industry. And it's crazy to think this industry is barely even 5, 6, 7 years old. And it feels like it's
yeah.
been around for decades.
Well,
When I look,
technically, it has been around for decades, right?
I know.
It's and this is the interesting thing. This is not a proof of concept industry. Like, the industry exists. It's
Yeah.
really how do you convert something that's existed for the long for 50 plus years, and now you want to convert it for all the right reasons, convert it to the legal space. It's similar to sports gambling. You see it happening there for
We
whatever
cover that as well. It's
yeah,
like,
for whatever reason. They're just there's just such a stigma. I think a great opportunity for the Republicans would be to take this up as a business issue as well as a states' rights issue, to say,
100%. But the
hey,
question is, will they?
let probably not, but it's
No.
a missed opportunity for them.
Baby boomers. Baby boomers. The just say no Reagan era. I think that's the issue, but that's just me.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
so
a good point.
yeah. So when I look at your business model, the nature of your business, you have a clear view on pre-public companies and auxiliary companies that service the dispensary funnel. So which segments of the market do you think you feel you can provide that, I guess, provide the best return on capital in the future that maybe perhaps investors aren't paying attention to?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm kind of understanding the question right, I think, I guess what we believe is we think that the premium product space, so again, premium brands, so, some of the brand partners that we're talking to, because they grow a higher quality product, they haven't seen as much price pressure, especially in California, where the market's kind of been crazily depressed. And you look at kind of the pricing that they're able to get. And so we think that, when you think with respect to kind of playing in that premium segment, we think that's an area where we can do a couple things. One is, again, hopefully not get into a downward spiral as more supply comes online, and
Hmm.
maybe the mid tier or the value levels, that you're not kind of a race to the bottom. I think it also
Hmm.
helps if you think about, get again, given the wholesale opportunity in New York, having a product that's a brand that people can that are walking into the store, and if you don't have it, they walk out because they want to,
Right.
they want to experience that
You gotta
brand.
have a they're so sophisticated, like, when it comes to cannabis product and brands, it's not like alcohol. You either have a specific brand or they're out the door, do you not find?
That's absolutely right, right, and it's kind of a destination. And again, when the opportunity is they come in to buy a specific brand that drives the traffic, and then they also pick up some other products that look interesting, but really they kind of their basket's centered around a brand that you're
Mhm.
able to deliver. I think that's a differentiator and a competitive moat that you could build with respect to um, kind of having brand loyalty and brand excitement, when you
Mhm.
have a new drop or whatever it might be, and that retailer is able to kind of leverage that to drive traffic and then sell more stuff. That makes that retailer kind of open to maybe some of the other brands and products that aren't as well known that they want to stock on their shelves. So
Yeah.
again, in a lot of ways, this model's been tested before as it relates to consumer products companies. It's really share of shelf and getting on as many shelves as you can, with a portfolio of products, and that's kind of where, as much as I talk about brands, it's definitely as a plural. It's our desire to bring different West Coast brands, as well as the Etain brand that is a really solid brand, kind of for the segment that it represents. But you kind of have that portfolio of brands that you can offer to a retailer, and then having a consistent supply of it, right? That you're
Yeah.
not in stock, out of stock. Again, all kind of just the normal business things that you need to execute on, to make sure you're a trusted partner for those retailers.
This industry moved too fast in the beginning, but we're getting a lot better, I think and believe. And I think a lot of people are just, it's a sound business model. What a lot of people are doing. It's just the only challenge right now is just obviously legislation, which has really turned a lot of investors away because we've had 6 rough quarters in this industry. But as soon as there's
Yeah.
somewhat of positive news, um, it doesn't matter how many new industries are growing and coming on the horizon. This space is so polarizing that if and when that does happen, I think we're going to see opportunities within this space that we've never seen before. But this is where a lot of the legwork and foundation gets built, right?
No, I agree, and I ask this to a lot of people, and I'll be interested in your answer. When you think about the amount of global investable capital that can actually come into the cannabis industry,
Yeah.
I think it's probably less than 1%, and it might be less than 1/10 of 1%. I don't know what your
Hmm.
opinion is, but again, once you're able to normalize, and maybe safe banking does that a little bit, but there's literally like you know trillions of dollars that are out there
Trillions.
that cannot invest in this space currently, given the federal illegality of it. And so once that you start to unleash some of that, and again, hopefully, and the businesses have matured and have real earnings, and cash flow and things of that nature. We can talk about 280E as it relates to cash flow. That's a huge issue as well.
Of
But
course.
once you kind of unleash bigger pools of capital, you just can see these things legging up, 2, 3, 5 times.
Well, this goes to my point about how the industry just moves so quick off the top, and it was unrealistic expectations. And let's face it, the retail investment community wants a taste of that again because they just experienced in the Canadian landscape a once in a lifetime opportunity. A lot of people got a taste of it. Their portfolios shot up. They didn't get out in time, but now it's the U.S. side, which probably provides a much bigger opportunity. But like I said, there's investor fatigue, obviously, with what's going on in Washington right now. So I'm really curious to see what happens. But you made a bold statement between now and the midterms, but they have to do something, and this could actually win a lot of voter favor for them leading up between now and November, knowing I don't see Chuck Schumer remaining as the Senate Majority Leader with where things stand right now, but being from New York and actually passing something, this could really build some momentum for them. But it would be great for the industry too, right?
100%. And then again, hopefully not far behind is, 280E reform if they don't get to full legalization.
Well, listen, I appreciate the update. Interesting to say the least on where we sit with New York and where we see that coming online later this year potentially, and then the opportunities it presents and even your wholesale model. But it looks like it's going to happen relatively sooner than what we think. And when it does, this is going to move fast, but it's really going to change, I think, the whole landscape in the Midwest and East Coast of the U.S. and the opportunities it presents. So hopefully by that time, we got some banking legislation on the horizon too, right?
That would be fantastic. That would be great.
All right. Talking to a Michigan grad, go blue. Mr. Sims,
Go blue.
Keep in touch, but I appreciate you checking in with us here today.
All right. Thanks so much. This was fun.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Hey, everyone. Thanks for watching. And if you like this video, wait until you see what we have next. Some of the best thought leaders in the verticals that we cover, from cannabis and psychedelics to cryptos and NFTs and sports wagering. So if you want to learn more, make sure to click on that bell for all notifications, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.